Hi, y'all. It's Legina. We are in season 2, episode 3 of the LRI Infinity Let's Talk podcast. This podcast is all about taking the story that we're supposed to tell, throwing it out the window, and telling your unapologetic story the way you want to tell it in your own time, in your own words. And best believe this woman is going to tell it in her own words. And I'm Legina, the host of the LRI Infinity Let's Talk podcast. Warning, in this podcast, there is cursing and adult content.
Hello, my name is Christina Wright. I'm 34 years old. My zodiac sign is Taurus. My goal today is to remind you we don't have all the answers, and you're listening to the LRI Infinity Let's Talk podcast season 2.
Y'all, I am so ecstatic to have Christina on this podcast. Like I said, the reason why I have her on the podcast is because we've got to know each other over the last month and a half or so. And I really like the way she moves. She came in all quiet, sleeper agent to this community of women that I'm a part of and just started cracking jokes. And I was like, oh, I like her. And then I found out she lives in Houston. And since season 2 is all about highlighting women in and around the Houston area that are entrepreneurs, I was like, oh, shit, I have to have her on the show. And since then, we've probably been in like work sessions for our businesses that we're getting started, maybe 3, maybe 4 nights a week. And so, late night working all the time. So late night working can really, make two people fuse together in some unique way. I thank you for coming on the show. I know you're in the middle of a lot of business endeavors and getting money and financing for your business. So I'm excited you're able to take a moment, step back, and share your story.
Thank you for having me.
What's a moment in life that has impacted you the most?
Gosh, those are questions.
Yeah, it's questions.
And the thing about it is you've got to think really hard. Like, what are the pieces? Like you were just saying, like there are pieces of us that we sweep under the rug. Mm-hmm. And so, this is the environment in which I'll just like confess, like part of my brain goes to, yeah, that was terrible, but that would be one, but maybe not that one this time, right? Is this the time that I want to tell that piece of my story? So let's see. Let's sift through them. I think that 2 come to mind. I think, being molested as a kid is, high on the list. Mm-hmm. And these days, particularly sitting with COVID and some things happening this year, that's something that I'm realizing how much it has impacted me. And then the other, again, COVID. Man, COVID is something serious. Mm-hmm. So the other thing, and it's like it's a double-edged, situation. Like it's twofold of, the being molested as a kid and then growing up mixed in a nation that really, truly, and it's in my pitch, but this nation really was created on binaries, and realizing that all of this strife that I've had my entire life, people really didn't mean anything. Like I've never had a safe place to exist, and no one meant anything by it. They didn't even realize it because it's a nation created on binaries. You've got a Black community, you've got a white community. Cool beads. But what about the people who are from both?
Yeah. And another thing, like when we're talking about binaries, I really do feel like when people do not ever have to go outside their box, and they never have to experience anything else, whether it's the neighborhood or how people talk, or understanding that it's not hot 100 degrees 6 months out of the year everywhere. I think that really plays into people's psyche and everything else, because even in dating, right? Like I love Southern men, I date Southern men, and the ones I find to be the most connected to are like country boys that have been in the military or gone traveling or been in some type of professional sport where they've seen other environments. So they very much have the root of who they are, and they very much respect and love the idiosyncrasies and the beauty of a Black woman, but they also are like, cool, yeah, let's do this new age Black thing and go travel and do this and do that. I have seen where people are misplaced for so many reasons. Being mixed, definitely one. Being gay or identifying differently, another one. Being Black and from educated parents that are married and not living in all Black neighborhoods, you get displaced for some reason. And it's from all sides. Like white people are like, approach you weird. And you're like, yo, hi, how are you? You don't have to say, what up, nigga? Like, I understand, white American English and whatever. So yeah. Which road do you want to go down for a conversation?
Let's go down the mixed route. Let's go down that one.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, talk about how you grew up, talk about your parents, talk about your siblings, if you have any, all that.
So I have, my family is something that most of my friends, it takes them multiple years to understand. I have the ultimate blended family. There, at Christmases, you will see my dad, his current wife, his ex-fiance, who we call our stepmother because he was with her for so long after he was with my mother. You'll see my 6 siblings, who one of them is adopted. We are every shade. We have 3 different moms, like that's how I grew up. But there's a time before that. There's a time where there was just the 3 of us that were between me and my dad and my mom. And, then they split up, and then you have, this additional person that comes in, and all in that. And I'm starting to unpack that this year. In that, we also had adults who were trying to figure out very complicated situations. My dad is Black. My mother is Hispanic and white. Mm-hmm. And so as I start to review a lot of things, really we grow up with this veil. And so as I start to review it, I realize that childhood dream that I had where I wanted my mom and my dad to get back together, the reality is systemically, it was never going to happen.
What do you mean when you say systemically never going to happen?
They didn't understand each other.
Shit, yeah.
At all. When I review, like this year, I'm sitting sometimes and I'm just thinking about something, I don't know. Are your parents together?
My dad passed away 2 years ago, but my parents were together for 41 years and they were married for 38. So yeah. Okay. So when you have parents who are not together, they tend to do this thing. And I find it quite common where they like talk about the arguments, or like they have these contentions that like they're still really mad about like 10 years later. But as I start to review those stories that I've really ignored for the better part of 15 years, because mom, dad, I don't care. Right. But as I start to review them in this light, I realize that a lot of those things come from who they were as culturally, how they grew up culturally. There were things that my mom would do or that my dad would do, and they just didn't understand each other. And because we are in a nation where, access is an issue. My dad didn't have access. My mom did. My mom had a lot of access growing up because of both of her parents. My grandfather was in the Navy, and he talks about all these like Navy stories, being Hispanic in the Navy and like the crap he had to put up with, right? And then my grandmother, she moved around a lot. My mom, when they were growing up, they lived in outside of Chicago, outside of Birmingham, right? So think about the time my mom's growing up. She's growing up in the suburbs. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Daddy is from 5th Ward, Houston, Texas.
Two like way different worlds, even when you're considering not growing up in Texas. Like
that's all. Don't know. And, my dad's worried about things, that he was raised to worry about being from a Black community. And my mom is like, chill out. Like, let the kids do their thing. They're fine. And dad's like, no, the world's going to kill them. Which, growing up, honestly, I just thought daddy was overreacting. Now I look up and I realize, like, no, that fear came from a very real place. A very real place. And it wasn't a place that my mom was in a position, not at that time, to understand. Now, having had 3 Black kids of her own, yeah, she understands it. She gets it, and so conversations are different. But that's why I say, like, when I look at it, oh, good gracious, they were set up to fail, and she was raised in a way that left her looking for love in different places. And, and there is this, it's part of the reason that I started working on PS. Because I realize a lot of this is because we don't have the conversations. What would have happened if my dad and my mom were in an environment where they were encouraged to just sit down and talk to each other?
Whoa, hey. Like mind blowing.
Yeah. Okay. I realize now we didn't even have the conversations even within my household. Like, this year there are all these videos for white people to understand conversations that happen in Black households, right? I'm in a unique space where it's not that I'm blind to those conversations or that I didn't know that they happened, but they did not happen for me and my household in that way. They were more, when you get pulled over, like we didn't get the history behind or any personal stories behind it. Just was like, when you get pulled over, do what the cops tell you to do. Right. And so it's interesting to me, even thinking about sometimes my dad would say things like, well, you know how it is with us, we can't get away with anything. Up until, swear to God, this year, I have been thinking that the us and the we that my dad is talking about is just like the right family. Like me, my brother, my sisters, like, it just happens to be like, we can't ever get away with shit. And I'm starting to realize, and I haven't doubled back with him to have that conversation, but I'm coming to realize that I think us and we was as Black people, but Absolutely. I never read that because it was never put that way for me. And it makes me think there's a way for us to create environments where, the conversations that have to be had are had, but the ones that cause additional scars are reserved for when you're ready for them. This year, I realized, like, I've been arrested 4 times, and it's not only something that I just don't talk about, but it's also something that truly has traumatized the hell out of me. And I've never processed it, never thought about it, because what do we do in the Black community? When you get arrested, when you get back home, and whether it's a minor offense, a major offense, whatever, it's so regular. You get back home, you keep it freaking moving. And you pick something, like from every arrest, there's some funny story that, we latched on to, and, we just continued as a family. And it was like this funny thing. And it's not until this year where I sat down and all this is going on. And it was like this video, Candace Owens. I did a video about George Floyd's arrest record. And like, I just the spirit hit me and I turned my camera on and I'm like, let's talk about arrest records. Okay. I am a professional woman. Most people know me as very professional. I have I've reported Supreme Court hearings and, major cases, Blagojevich in Chicago. Like, I've done all of these things. I've worked with public charities across the nation on their communications. When people see me, they see me as one thing. And so I intended to just kind of lay out like a real quick hit.
But then 2020 has you sitting in shit and you sat there and you just unloaded, right?
Listen, it's an hour damn long.
Yeah. And okay, so let's talk about that real quick, because when you say that, 3 things come to mind. One is, how funny is it in this ironic way that the only privilege in the situation and the privilege that we're able to have as Black people is to have the privilege to feel like that's some bullshit. Like the privilege isn't, I'm about to call my dad and this is ridiculous. So that's one of them. Two is, well, 2 and 3, because it's kind of twofold, is, do you feel like if you were, because I don't want to take away your mixed race. So let's go with, if you feel like you were more white presenting and you're fairly light skinned. So we could even go with, if your hair was straight, do you feel like the outcomes of anything with the arrests would have been different?
I now really wonder that. I now very much wonder that. And I know that every single time that I was arrested, my white side was not presenting. You know, like I have.
What is white side?
I've joked over the years that sometimes like I look white, sometimes I look, you know, Hispanic, sometimes I look Black.
Very much. That
particular day, like those days, I looked ethnic, like one or the other, but I certainly was not white, and I didn't present myself in that way because like it threw me off. And every time you get arrested, it's something that just disturbs your day. I ain't robbing, stealing, killing. I am going on about my goddamn day. Y'all are pissed off that I don't have insurance and I don't have I don't have stickers and I don't have this. Okay, understandable. Y'all got these laws or whatever. I'm not saying that the laws are just, because I actually think that there are different ways we can go about that without arresting people. But all right, whatever.
But to be honest, everybody does not get arrested for what you're talking about.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, granted, part of it was that I didn't go to court. I am 17, 18 years old. I've been working since I was 14 years old. Real jobs, not bullshit. Jobs that my first job earned $14 an hour. My second job earned $12. And that was my job through the rest of high school. I paid bills. That's what I did. That was my living situation. And that's why I say, like, there are systemic things that really comes to irritate me this year, to realize like, oh, wait a minute. There are other people who get passes and they didn't have to put up with half of the bullshit that I did on a regular basis. I was excited when I got paid with my little paycheck, me and one of my sisters, when we got paid and we were able to go to McDonald's and order a numbered meal. Okay. When we could order a fucking combo and supersize it, we were excited. And I'm talking about genuinely excited and happy. Right. That is the type of circumstances I'm in. And y'all are arresting me the summer before I'm going to college, to Howard, to one of the best universities in the nation.
Hey, come on.
Y'all arrested me. Hey, you know I love my HU.
You know I do too, girl. We're real quick. I love giving shout outs. So we'll take a little break, and we're not a real one, y'all, but shout out to all the HBCU grads. What up?
Hey.
What up, Howard? Hey, what up, PV? Since we're here in Houston, TSU.
Don't leave them out. I went to high school right across the street.
Right, never that. But I think it's so great, and not even skirting the subject, but I think it's so great that I don't know. I feel like 2020, we've been busting out the woodworks, these HBCUs, and we're like, yo, we're here. We are educating young Black people. We are doing something that is positively making a change in the world. So moving from what you were talking about, like growing up, all these jobs you had from the age of 14, bullshit arrests that you... Or I definitely feel like part of the system. I don't know, community service, because I think community service builds character in people, should be loaned out or dished out a lot more to a lot more youth than putting them in.
And it should be said, because it never was said anywhere. I didn't have the access that, later in life. Like after bumping my head up against the wall, now I know if I truly don't have the money, I can go to court and talk to the judge and let him know I really don't have the money, and they would give me community service. But that was not the access that I had back then.
You're listening to the LRI Infinity Let's Talk podcast. It's that time of year again. Sale, sale, sale. Well, this year, let's spend our dollars with small businesses. Black and brown businesses, sign up for our live virtual market, and shoppers, make sure you're in our virtual shops. Check us out at pointedspaces.com and on Instagram @_open market.
That's the thing about it. Doing the quote unquote right thing for a lot of people, it doesn't give you a fucking pass. And I thought that it did for a very long time. Like, I have been so big on just doing the right thing. Just do what you're supposed to. Now, don't get me wrong. I have always been a rebel. I break rules. I have broke rules since way back when. My daddy and my mama just ain't got no good damn sense. All right? And so they have encouraged us to break certain rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And so it's not like I've just lived this prim and proper and I've never, gotten on the other side. But again, rob, cheat, steal, kill. Ain't nobody doing all of that shit. Mm-hmm. But just stepping outside just a little bit. And that's what our dads were telling us. Like, you can't even step just a little bit. You can't be caught stepping out.
Yeah, and I think my dad leveled up. I think he brought the Lord into it because, like, even when I thought I was getting away with it, girl, the Lord smiteth upon thee. even if it was something dumb, like, I may have gotten away with something a little shady. Who knows? I don't know. And I'm walking into a wall and breaking my damn toe. Like, it's like, no, bitch, gotcha. Like, and I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, that's what they say in the South. That was Jesus.
That was nothing but the Lord, baby.
Mm-hmm. That was Jesus talking to you. You might want to talk back to him. Like, I've taught my fiance that one. He's from New York, so there's a lot of Southern things. You were talking about the different languages. There's a lot of Southern things that I say, but I've taught him that one, and he didn't come to believe it because it's true.
It's true. The Lord is upon us, and I think in 2020. What has been one of the biggest challenges in your young adult life? So you leave Houston, you're at Howard, outside of arrests for various reasons, one of them being driving while Black. What has been one of the largest challenges of you in your young adult life?
Young adult life, honestly, getting outside the box. Realizing that the protocol I had been given on how to order my steps, that wasn't what was divinely supposed to be given to me. We were told to, my dad raised every day. He dropped me off at school. Education is the way. And I'm the key, daddy, to what? Success, daddy. Like,
the whole fill in the blank. Girl, ours was education, God, education, family, God, education, family. And you're like, so I'm like, God, education, family. What do I have? I have God, I have education, and I have my family. That's it.
Right? So it's like, I'm like, all right, education's the key. So no matter what setbacks I had growing up, like no matter what, I'm like, I am going to college. I am graduating. I will be successful. That is what I have been told. I'm doing this shit. And I did. And I really bulldozed. I'm a Taurus. So I bulldozed through the early part of my life. Like, screw everything else, friends. Like, I got a good little clique. I'm good. I got to get this education. I get my education. I graduate from Howard. I knew I'm in journalism. I'm going to start off pretty low, but I had worked my ass off, internships every summer, to the point where I didn't get to do what normal people do when they attend Howard University. Like, so once I graduated, I get out here, I'm not making very much money, but I'm still trying to push. And I spent 4 or 5 years? It was 5 years, because I'm looking at the newspapers I was at. So I spent 5 years, 5 additional years, okay? Because again, I've been doing internships since I was 14 years old, not bullshitting. Like, every summer is not a goddamn, I graduated with the resume of a lifetime. And I took the L because I graduated in a recession. All right, I'm going to give it a little bit more time. I'm going to keep pushing. And then when I was in, my 5th year, I'm looking at this. I'm not happy. I'm not successful, not by my definition.
Your 5th year of being a professional, your 5th year
being a professional journalist.
Got it.
And I'm like, I'm not, and I think it was God talking to me at that time. I'm just hard-headed, so I wasn't listening. He was telling me, you're done with journalism, and I ain't want to listen.
That's a hard look, though. That's a hard look when you put money and time and your love into it.
Listen.
It's a heartbreak in itself, right?
I mean, all I knew was journalism. I was Christina the journalist. Everyone who knows me, even now, that is my identity for them. So, when I'm in journalism, I'm getting this idea that maybe this isn't what it was. And then journalism, I got out. I was fired. I'll tell the truth. I did some things. Listen, girl, I can't be telling no lies. It just doesn't sit right in my spirit. But I was tired. I was really, really tired, and I was making mistakes that I hadn't made since I was 14, 15. This was basic shit. Honestly, I deserve to be fired, and they deserve to be able to fire my ass with some of the basic mistakes that I was making.
Where were you living here at the time?
I was in Memphis.
Okay.
And truth be told, the industry was having its own issues. And so I think it was also a convenience thing. And one of the systemic things that I realized this year that really impacted my mood even then was when I interviewed for that job, the editor of the paper sits me in a room, because in journalism, you do all day interviews. I hear everybody else ain't like that.
I think the airlines were at some point when you were being like a flight attendant, but yeah.
Girl, it's all day. It is the most exhausting thing. You're suited, booted, you're meeting all these people, and you're trying to put on your best face to remember all the stories you've done. They invite me in for this interview, and I'm all day long. So I'm sitting with the white editor. So the white editor tells me, I really wasn't sure about you. I honestly wasn't. I only I really looked at you because this person, Black dude, really vouched for you. I didn't make these associations at the time, but he's like, what made me finally decide to interview you was because you did this interview and the way you held your own. I just thought that was just so smart of you. Now, past Christina didn't have the words to say, fuck you.
She was like, thank you so much.
Right. I was like, I was in middle of nowhere fucking Georgia after having spent a stint in middle of nowhere Indiana. So Memphis, baby, I don't care what you think I can or can't do. I can prove you wrong because that's how I was raised. Right? We always go against the adversity. You always have the black tax. You got to work your hardest. And so that was just ingrained in me. I didn't even know the term black tax, but I sure as hell exercised it. And so, I'm like, dang, you right. That interview was great. But when you look at this interview that I was doing, it was nothing. But you saw the black woman standing up and being able to
articulate yourself so good.
Come off of it. So anyhow, when you ask me what impacted me in early adulthood, it was this realization that what I thought I would get, I didn't get. And that I had been sold a lie. And it took me a long time to figure out what that lie was. And the lie doesn't even always have to do with, it's not just systemic racism, that's part of it. It's everything. We're sitting here and we're telling everybody how to live your life. That was never anyone's job. No one put us on this earth to tell each other how to live their lives. And what makes sense for your life may not make sense for my life. And the way that you get to your success may not look like the way that I get to mine. And your definition of success may be different than mine. But we don't allow for that in any part of our world, not even just American society. We really don't allow for that in very much of our world.
Like humanity itself, yeah.
That's what I think 2020 is about. I think 2020 is truly about a divine, now it don't matter who you believe in, but some divine being has intervened and forced the entire world to sit down.
And think and stop.
just stop and enjoy. Like, I mean, you have to think about what's more important, you know, going out and being able to go to the club or the restaurant, or being able to survive the next day.
So I was about to interject with this. So when you said that, it's exactly what I was thinking too. I was like, all these people that aren't doing it, the hardest thing in the world that I definitely feel like is being able to look yourself in the mirror and come to terms with who you are, what you've done, what you're going to do, and being able to like forgive yourself, celebrate it, all that stuff in one motion. And 2020 makes you do that. So what if part of you not wanting to do that is to keep fighting this grain? Like, how bad is it? Like, how many times have you woken up on a class day or on a day of work and you're like, damn, I wish we could just press pause for the day. I wish I just needed the day. And I'm not saying everything about 2020 is good, but we all low key wish. We all got it. And some of us are taking it and not saying, you know, it's good, bad, or ugly, but it's good. And then some of us seem like we took it and it was long enough and we had to press play again in a forceful way, and we're running from it.
Yeah, in a major way. And I think that time will tell how beneficial it was for those of us who took the time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like you had to take the time. Like, some of these people act like some of these folk act like we don't live in 2020. Like, we live in 2020, guys. This is not 1862. Like, you still have connections to the rest of the world. So like you said, they really are running, and time will tell that they hadn't sat here like with the rest of us. We have worked our butts off this COVID season. But we've also done the internal work. Those of us that allowed that time to happen. And I think it'll be interesting, you know, when we look at what folks' lives look like moving forward, because it's really, truly about how you spent this time.
Christina, would you rather be crazy rich or deeply in love?
Deeply in love.
Why?
Because I believe in the power of unity. And I believe that if you have enough love that you can unite, and it's, you know, whether on a romantic level, big community, whatever, you can create anything. You can create fortune and prosperity. Money's just money. That comes and goes. But like, love is something that like you can truly, I believe, have forever.
Do you consider yourself sexually enlightened?
Girl, listen, I mean, at one point I was. I'm not sure about now.
Like, when I say sexually enlightened, like, what comes to mind for you?
Honestly, I was going to ask you. You know, I'm about to do these follow-up questions. Yeah. I was going to ask you, well, what do you mean by sexually enlightened?
What do you mean by sexually enlightened?
I guess I'll go with where my response comes from. Is like, I think that when I was younger, I was more free in a regard. And part of that may come from me being in a relationship. You know, when you're just single and doing your thing, it just doesn't matter. It's just like, but then when you have like a traditional person that you're in a relationship with, like, then there's like, oh wait, I kind of need to think about some of these things. So I think about sex more than I used to.
Got it. Do you think that your past and being sexually assaulted play a heavy role in how you view sex? And do you feel like there was a point where you lashed out or acted out against yourself because of your assault?
Yeah, I do. And as I'm starting to learn about the chakras and everything, I realize my sacral chakra has really taken hits throughout my life, starting with being molested when I was 4. So yeah, I do. I think I think for some time it was, you know, using sex as my own personal weapon.
And an empowerment piece.
Yeah, like, and as armor too. Like, not just like, I'm going to use this against you, but I'm going to protect myself with this.
Yeah.
Like, I get to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. And then, later on, like a couple more hits, and I'm just like, I'm at a point where I realize I'm gonna have to heal my sacral chakra. Cause 22-year-old Christina, she was getting it in. And I need 34-year-old Christina to be getting the same in.
Yeah.
Like, we just gonna, fiance will catch up. I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah. I think once again, when you talk about building that relationship, and we've talked about the language of love, like that's part of it. Like once you look somebody in the eyes and you have decided that like, cool, I'm going to take you and everything in that bag behind you. And when you open the bag, we're going to look at it together and we are going to unpack it. I think that's shit. I know that is part of like what real love is. So what has been one of your biggest accomplishments thus far?
Shoot.
Girl, okay, she got a lot of them, y'all. She has a lot.
I'm an A student, all right. I told you, I spent a lot of my life.
I'm a summa cum laude from Howard University.
Okay, I am, and you've recently learned that I'm also very competitive. And so,
okay, because I'm just gonna put this in here, y'all, because the segment 1 never actually makes it into the episode. So if you listen to the end of the episode, sometimes segment 1 will be in the bloopers. But it's a game that I play with my guests at the beginning, and it's word association. And I say a word, you say something you're thinking of, and we get to the last word. And the last word of the game that I always go with is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And I'm saying the word, and as I get halfway through the 1,000-letter word, Christina's like, expialidocious. Like, and I'm like, whoa, girl, that was not so she's competitive as hell. Competitive.
I like to win. All right. Big family. We played lots of Monopoly. Like, shit got serious. So, now I will take a loss well enough. Now, don't be sitting here expecting me to give a whole lot of pats on backs, but I'll take a loss. But I like to win. So when we think about, this one's really cool. It just came to mind. Thank you, Angels.
Biggest accomplishment. Come on with the Angels.
So I got to go to the White House Correspondents Association dinner.
Ooh.
Right.
Who was in office?
Everybody always asks that. Leave me alone.
Who was it?
I had Bush. Because it was the year before Obama. So, my whole life, whenever I look at those pictures, I was just like, man, I could have met Obama, though. Obama. Because, listen, this was so dope. I won a scholarship at Howard. Me and one of my best journalism friends, shout out to Philip Lucas. I got to plug, right?
Hey, come on.
But that was my road dog. So we go to this thing and we did not realize, again, access. We didn't realize how big this was. They were just like, you won a scholarship. Me and Phil were like, ooh, money. Our parents don't have money like that and Howard's expensive. So we thought scholarship. So they're telling us no, you got it, we want to see your outfits. And thank God for HBCUs. All right. They ain't never going to let us show up crazy.
Never. Ever.
So the, one of our career development person ain't have smack to do with none of this, but she hears we won. She was somewhat related to the scholarship. So she pulls us in. She's like, show me your outfit. I want to see your outfit. I want to see this. She shows us pictures of what other people's outfits. It was this whole thing.
Shout her out.
Yeah. Carol Dudley. Oh man. Carol Dudley is amazing. All right.
Up to the career person named Carol Dudley at Howard University.
If you go to Howard, go find Carol Dudley. Miss Dudley got your back all day, every day. She was so awesome. She helped every one of us with our resumes. We didn't know what a daggone resume really was supposed to look like, and you didn't have Canva. It makes me feel old, but technology just moves that quickly. But we didn't have Canva or any of these things. And Carol, Miss Dudley would sit down with you and it didn't matter how long. It was love. So Ms. Dudley sits us down. She goes through our outfits. I call up my dad. I'm like, Daddy, like, I need an outfit, apparently. Like, apparently I'm going to be on, like, C-SPAN or something. And you know how dads are, right? Especially black dads. My dad's like, you going to be where? What's going on? My baby gonna be where? Well, where you going? So like, he's like, well, tell me how much it is. So daddy goes and does what daddy does. It comes up with the money. It was this big thing. And I still love the pictures because I felt beautiful in the dress that I was in. It was one of those years where, I felt real good about my body. Like I was like, oh girl, you hitting and you classy too. Like, cause it was a classy affair. I really look at where I came from as a kid, and I value every single one of these types of things I've gotten to do. Like even the luncheons when I was in high school and middle school, those were so important because it made me feel like I was part of the whole world, right? And I think about sometimes the students who didn't get those opportunities because they didn't ace the tests. They didn't do the things, it didn't make the system, the way that they teach and the education system didn't fit them. So they didn't get that access. They didn't get to feel like they were part of the entire world, and like everyone cared about them. And I always did because I was an A student.
You are listening to the LRI Infinity Let's Talk podcast. That's LRI Let's Talk on Instagram and Facebook.
What's something that overwhelms you?
So I have anxiety, so it's a shit ton of shit that overwhelms me.
I have anxiety too. When did you realize you had anxiety? Like, so everybody has anxiety, like we all have anxiety, but like when did you realize that, when did your anxiety start taking a hold where it kind of like tipped the balance and you were like, shit, this is a problem?
Right around 26, 27. I was living here in Georgia. I'm visiting Georgia, guys. So I was living in middle Georgia and I had something happen and like whole life fell apart. And I went and I saw a therapist. I argued my therapist down. She's like, she's just messed around and said the word anxiety one day. And I was like, I don't have anxiety. What are you talking about? Right? Because then that means there's something wrong with me. And so she's like, okay. And I'm like, no, these are my issues. And I named like straight up medical things. What I didn't know is that my therapist's husband is a medical doctor. So she was like, all right, cool. Go get those things checked out. Right? And like the way that they are, these two don't talk to each other. So it's not like she sat at home and prepped him for me coming to come see him. I'm seeing him blanket just as a new patient.
Patient privileges. Right.
Like, right? So I see him and I'm like, we go through the medical things. He basically is like, girl, ain't nothing wrong with you. But he said something, he was like, but you have really bad anxiety. And I was like, no, I don't. Tell your wife I don't have anxiety. He's like, I didn't even know that you were her patient.
Wow.
So yeah, that's when I found out. And I'm very sensitive to it now. And like you said, I've come to realize so many people have anxiety and have severe anxiety. And they've got zero coping mechanisms.
Zero. And I think parents are doing a better job now. What's something that you really like about yourself?
That I'm a conundrum.
That you're a conundrum.
Yeah. It probably comes from the whole mix thing. But I enjoy that no one who meets me knows what they're going to get for real. Like, there's layers to this shit. And for some time, I didn't even know that. But since I've come to know it, it kind of makes me feel like, there is a side of me that is very quirky. Like, I lead with quirk. And it's probably a little bit of a nervous twitch. But if you meet the quirky side of me, you don't really realize that I have all of this expert experience and all of that stuff behind me, and vice versa. People who meet me professionally hardly get to see the quirky side, which sucks because I've got to be like a drill sergeant.
Right.
Got to get it done. I'm a boss. And I think, you know, for people who meet me, friends and my fiance, like it takes them a while to figure out like where I'm going to come from.
So let me ask you this. If you could ask one single person one question and they had to answer truthfully, who would you ask and what would the question be?
Oh, that's a question. You coming through with those, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's think about this. You know what? We'll make it a fun one because otherwise we'll be here all day.
Okay.
I would ask Barack Obama what he truly thought the night that Donald Trump was elected. And I'm not talking about like the politician answer. Like, I want like the person answer. Like when you
off in that room.
Yeah, like between you and Michelle, what did you say?
Motherfucker.
Hey, what were the words, Barack?
Michelle.
You know, and I wonder, like, does it look a little bit like my dad? You know, like, because I just feel like he wouldn't have taken it well.
Who inspires you the most, and who do you hope to inspire at some point?
Who inspires me the most? You know, I keep wondering if this answer is ever going to change, but it's my mom. Like, you know, over the years, I've thought about that. You know, over the years, the veil comes down about your mom and you start seeing her more as a real person. And so I've thought that maybe that answer would change, right? Mm-hmm. But it hasn't. It's just made me really, really inspired by her even more. Mm-hmm. You know, when I think about how flexible she is. You know, she moves with the punches like the best of them. And then when you add in the layer of, you know, having married a Black man and then having divorced a Black man and then having raised 3 mixed kids, not just Black kids, mixed kids, you know, the types of things we came home with. I mean, my mama moved with the punches like it was crazy. Mm-hmm. You know, learning how to do our hair and then all the while going to school. Mm-hmm. The entire time that I was growing up, my mom was in school, you know, moving to a higher degree. And even now she works with my nieces and nephews and she's like grandma superior. All right. I take my dog over there and he don't want to come home. Like my mama is the one. She's just really sweet. And like, she taught us to accept everyone for who they are, not who we think they are, not who other people say they are, but who they actually are, which has really forced us, you know, and allowed us to get to know everyone, anyone. I walk into a room and I can get to know them because I ain't judging you. You tell me who you are.
You let people be themselves and show their own light. And people always do, girl. They really do. Every time.
And then I give a lot of grace. And a lot of that is because of my mom. You know, some people think that, you know, I should go harder or I should be more pissed off or I should, you know, put a harder boundary or, you know, this person isn't that. And it's, you know, very often it comes off like I'm being soft, but I'm not. I just give people grace because I've seen my mom give people grace and I've seen what that comes to. I've seen what it creates in that person that she gave that grace to.
Yeah, I very much love and appreciate giving people grace, but it's also one of those things that, like you, I've seen my mom do it and she does it. She's done it so well. And like you, the older I get and I see her story, I'm just like, wow.
Just that quick, girl.
And still kind, still giving people grace, still in the light, still giving back. And I'm like, well, fuck, I can manage with everything that I have going to give people grace, if anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who do you hope to inspire?
I think really it is anyone who feels trapped in a box or feels like they're being put in a box. And for me, you know, when I say everyone, it looks like different things on different levels. You know, for my businesses and for my community work, it is the world at large. Mm-hmm. You know, for my businesses, target audiences and all that. Right. For my personal life, it's any of the interns or my nieces and nephews, you know, anyone who is involved in my life to just feel comfortable and just like being them and exploring life in the way that it makes sense for them.
Yeah. You said box, and it made me think of something that I noticed at a younger age. I'm super observant, but you're mixed and you're white and you're Hispanic and you are Black. The boxes, check the box. You're a female, check. If that's how you identify, which I know you do, so I can say that. So you're a female, check. And you get down to this line that says, you know, what is your ethnic? What do you typically, when you were younger, because the box, you're 35 like me, so those boxes weren't. It was like it was African American. They didn't even do the slash Black. They did African American, white. They didn't even do the non-Hispanic at one point for ethnic background breakdown or whatever. So what did you check? How was that process for you as a kid?
I checked other.
How does the other box make you feel?
It made me feel like you can't put me in a box. Like every time I checked other, it was like, none of this shit is right because you don't know me. And interestingly enough, my first editorial that I ever wrote was in high school when they allowed for us to check multiple boxes. So it's interesting that you mentioned that because yes, those boxes, even now they're frustrating. Even, you know, you allow me to check multiple boxes, but it still gets confusing because I'm checking Black and white, but then you get to the Hispanic question and it's like, Hispanic non-white, but I'm Hispanic and white. So how do I mark that? This is how we know that data actually can't be kept because I can't tell you that I mark the same thing every time. It just depends on what mood I'm in. And honestly, sometimes it depends on what the hell I'm applying for. You want me to be Black? Fuck it, I'm Black. You want me to be Hispanic for this scholarship? When I went to Howard, I got the National Association of Black Journalists Scholarship, National Association of Hispanic Journalist Scholarship.
Yeah. If it's you, it's you. Especially when we have people doing these DNA tests that are like full on European Americans and just happen to have like that little drop of indigenous in them, and they get in these
Native American
scholarships. So you're like, okay. All right, Christina. So we're coming to the end of this episode. Yo, you are so dope. And this has been such a good conversation, a profound conversation. Is there anything else that you want to tell us or share with us before we get off the line for this podcast?
So I guess I should take this opportunity to plug a little bit. PS, Make It Right, which is my new diversity training. Right now, we are doing instructor-led team training and advising. But we are going to be growing our online platform. Most of these diversity trainings only have history lessons and vocabulary. Ours, we put those on a database so that you can go and research that very necessary information. But we spend our time having the discussions. And the way that we do that is through pop culture. You watch TV shows and movies, and then we talk about these things that have been sitting in our faces for all of these years and break down what the Black experience is, what the white experience is.
I thank you for tuning in. I hope you got some laughs. I hope you learned a lot from Christina and her experiences and really enjoyed her story because I know I did. And as always, tell your story, be your own brand, live your truth, and stand in your moment.
All right, y'all. My name is Christina M. Wright. I am 34 years old. I hope y'all had a blessed time and that you realize that you step outside of the box. You just listen to my story as I live my truth and stand in my moment on the LRI Infinity Let's Talk podcast season 2.
Yes, come on with it, season 2, Christina. Thank you so much, girl. I appreciate it.
Girl, no problem. That was fine.
Beep. Hi.
Okay, girl, do the intro.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh,
Got
God.
it. I was like, oh, maybe this is my time. Okay. Beep. My brain was like, think quick. Okay, you want me to do it again?
Yes, girl.
Let me settle on my goal real quick. Hold on.
Okay, settle on your goal.
Goal is to